yourself? Because I have no idea.
Well, I'm the best guy to see on the worst day of your life. Let me explain what that means. I'm a general surgeon. I'm the guy that you
Oh,
never
yeah.
really want to see peering over your bedside. Um, Last Christmas, I was going in to see a patient, and I came in the room, and he was just smiling, like just all over. He just looked so happy, and he said, "Doctor, I haven't seen you in 10 years." I was kind of like, "What?" I mean, that kind of hurt my feelings, when I began to
What?
think about that.
That's a good
And,
thing.
and he said, "Doc, last time you saw me, you chopped my leg off."
Oh, jeez.
So I think that kind of explains
I wouldn't
kind of
want to
what I
see you
do. Yeah.
either.
I mean, if you're shot, if you've got cancer,
Yeah.
all the kind of morose things that we don't like to think about. That's typically what I do. So yeah, so I've been dealing with corona patients recently, going into the what I call the corona zone, and seeing all those kind of things. And so yeah, just all kinds of things. You name it, pretty much I do it.
Yeah, I've had like umpteen, like 13 stomach surgeries, so I know all about your profession.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Unfortunately. So you mentioned about COVID. So is the problems with the lungs from the COVID, is that where you come in?
Well, not necessarily. So typically that's something that would be taken care of by a critical care pulmonologist. So yeah, but COVID is one of those things that affects everybody, and we're having a lot of people now that come into the hospital with one thing and they get COVID, or we're having to deal with people who come in with typical problems, appendicitis, they need their gallbladder out, they're bleeding on the insides, all kinds of things, and we have to take care of them in light of the COVID virus. So yeah, it's a lot of different aspects of things.
So now you have a website out there. So you're not just a doctor. What else do you do? Why are you talking to PJ Gangsta?
Well, I'm trying to quit my day job, PJ. So yeah, have another reason to meet people. So it's interesting. I've kind of found through my years of being a doctor, learning how to process events that happen in my life, and so I didn't realize it at the time, but I began writing, and writing was actually kind of one of those ways that I began to process things. So this has to do with my faith and my spiritual life, as I began to kind of try to figure out, why are these things happening to me, and why are these things happening to other people? And so I began to kind of journal these things, and it ended up becoming a book. Um, and so that's what a spoonful of courage for the sick and suffering is about. It's funny, just like a general surgeon, nobody really knows you exist until they get sick.
Yeah.
Nobody ever thinks about you. Same thing when you write a book about being sick and suffering. No one ever thinks about being sick and suffering until the COVID virus comes.
I gotta admit, talking to you is like talking to a mirror because, I'm constantly telling people, I don't want your boyfriend. I don't want me in their bed. I want my book in their hands in their bed, and that's the same thing you got going on. You don't want them in your, you want them in your bed because you want to operate on them, or you want them to have your book in their bed, but you don't want them in your bed.
Yeah. So speaking of that, I also wrote a book about sleep. So trying to figure out all my sleep issues. And it's interesting. I'm kind of one of those do as I say, not as I do kind of doctors. And so one of the things I was kind of discussing all the spiritual dynamics of sleep, and what I realized is that um, I myself had a sleeping problem. Do as I say, not as I do. I realized that I had a sleep disorder and didn't even know it. So anyway, that's those are my
So
sleep
you
issues.
have two books
I know.
out.
I do. Yeah, one's called Surrendered Sleep, and the other one is A Spoonful of Courage for the Sick and Suffering. I hope to write a book about caregivers. I think the forgotten people in a health crisis are the people that are taking care of the sick. Not just sick folks.
You mean like, um, for example, are you talking about caregivers like nurses and doctors, or are you talking about like caregivers like parents that deal with child cancer?
I'm talking not so. Okay, I would define doctors and nurses as caretakers,
Okay.
and other folks, I mean, like family members as caregivers. Let me tell you a story. So one day this guy came in and needed to have an abdominal surgery. He wasn't the brightest bulb in the box, okay? And his name was Wally. And Wally came in and he had swallowed a piece of metal that had went through his intestine, and so I
Oh
had to
my
operate
God.
on him, take out his intestines, put it back together. This is not like taking two pieces of PVC pipe together. It
No.
takes about a week for it to heal, and you have a tube down your nose. So anyway, so I leave the operating room and walk out into the waiting room, and there's the mother, and she's sitting there sewing together, you know, a little sock, and she looks at me and she goes, "Doctor, excuse me, Wally really needs to have his psychiatric medicines." And I was like, "Well, yes, ma'am, I understand, but we can't give him his psychiatric medications because those medications are given by mouth and we don't have IV equivalents to give him." She says, "Doctor, I'm not going to be responsible for Wally." She says, "I'm going to leave him with you." So I kind of nodded my head and kind of brushed mom off. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, I get a call from the hospital administrator. Wally had taken his IV pole and he had walked across the street from the hospital over to Walmart. And you can imagine there he is in his gown with yeah, excuse me, with his derriere showing everywhere. He's
People of
and he's drinking
Walmart.
soda pop, with his tube down his nose, and he gets this pair of orange tennis shoes and puts them on his feet, and he walks up to the cash register trying to buy some soda pop.
With what
So
money? Where did he
I have
where
no
did he
idea. I mean, the
hide the
guy's crazy.
money?
So anyway, that's the difference between a caretaker and a caregiver. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Mom was a caregiver. She had skin in the game. She knew Wally inside and out. I'm a caretaker. I don't have as much skin in the game as caregivers do. But it's interesting when you're going through a health crisis. Caregivers, families, people taking care of the sick are the people who really, I think, are the forgotten sufferers, and
Yes.
they need to be encouraged as well. It's caregivers, the person taking care of their mom with Alzheimer's, or their husband who has cancer. All different kinds. I mean, they come in all different shapes and sizes. So, I think they need to be encouraged as well.
I miss I miss the pediatric doctor that we had that said that you should trust a mother's instincts because they were the caregivers.
Absolutely, because they know the sick person inside and out. As doctors, we're kind of like the coach. Coach standing on the sidelines.
They only
We
see just so much.
Yeah, we see it, but we don't experience. We're not actually in there playing the game in a sense. Like the caregivers and the patients who are suffering are.
Well, doctor, I need to probably find out again how to find your website and how to find your books and whatever else so we can stalk you on social media.
So, a spoonful of courage is being given away for free right now on Amazon.
I want it.
So you can go to Amazon and you can click the book and download it. And these are just stories. These are just stories of sick people who have learned, to see, how God helps them in a time of crisis. And so it's for free. You can download that. You can find some more stuff on charleswpage.com, which is my website. I've also got a YouTube site, and we're also starting kind of a doctor's talk thing where we're three doctors are getting together on Facebook and just talking about just general issues that people face. Of course, right now in the back of everybody's mind is the COVID virus, and everybody's got questions about that. So those are three ways that you can find me. I've got some free stuff on my website that you can actually print out and give to someone. It's kind of like a 3 or 4 stories, just a gift that you can give someone. A lot of times it's hard to know what to give grandma when you go to the hospital, or what do you give to somebody who's sick and suffering. And these are just encouraging stories. These are faith-based stories. They've got scriptures and things that just kind of help people change focus. And so you can download those stories on my website and print them out, and they're for free.
Well, I appreciate having you on my show, and I hope to speak with you again. I am Jaybird Wells, your hostess on Tea Time with PJ Gangsta.
Thank you, Dr. Page. Appreciate it, brother.
And